Hello everybody and good morning. Welcome to the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. So we're going over the book, How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People, and we are on chapter 11 today. So before we get into that, we're going to go ahead, we're going to move that there. We're going to go ahead and invite some people on here. And sorry, this process does take a moment. Would be nice if they had just an invite all button, but I get Facebook doesn't want to spam people, but sometimes it just makes things easier.
Chapter 10?
11.
Less than 10 yesterday. Alrighty.
All right, here we go. Are you watching? Yep. All right, we got some people jumping on here. All right, so how to get 100% cooperation and increase brain power. So what he talked about in this chapter is he has a two-step experiment. The first step is just ask somebody for help, which is, hey, can you just help me with this? And then the second step is approach someone else, a different person, and then ask them, hey, I need help with this job, but I also need help with thinking about the job. Like, here's what, an example of it would be, I've got a problem here and I need your help. Here's what I want to accomplish. What do you think about it? Do you have any ideas I could use? And what is your opinion of a way to go about this? So you have to find someone, you have to find some people with help by using this method. Most people will help by using the first method. Sorry, I typed that weird. But in most cases, you're really not going to get their full cooperation unless you really get them thinking about it. Because unless the person, by making the person think about the issue of like, hey, what do you think? Or what would be the best way to go about this? People aren't going to put their 100% because just by doing a task, they're going to do the bare minimum just to help and be a good person. But they're not going to go all out and be like, oh, well, let's try this. So how to get the other person to go all out? It is physically impossible for a human being to give us 100% of their brawn unless he is also allowed to give us his ideas. So they don't give the project the same care unless they are being valued for their ideas. Make them feel it's their problem too. So by just asking for help, the first reaction is that's your problem. It's not my problem. That's something you need to deal with. But when you ask them for advice and suggestions, you challenge them and have them put in the effort and giving them the problem to solve, and it becomes more interesting and they're more interested. So why not multiply your brain power 10 to 100 times? So multiply your own ideas by the ideas of others. Don't be afraid to ask ideas from other people who are producing on your team, and you may be missing out on something that you may never have thought of before. Now, the difference is you don't always ask everybody for their ideas, because somebody who's not producing and somebody who is a producer on the team is going to have very different ideas. And until somebody's working in the field, they're not going to know what it takes to actually get what needs to be done. And when you're asking people ideas, you have to be very careful of who you're asking ideas from, because if they're not producing, they're not going to be able to give you advice because they're not doing it. It's like I wouldn't go and ask, what would be a good example? I wouldn't go to a person who is an electrician and talk about electrician work with somebody who wasn't. I wouldn't go to somebody and talk about electrician work who is not an electrician. I would go talk to an electrician. You wouldn't go go take advice from somebody who doesn't do that job, because also if you do it wrong, you're going to get electrocuted. So how to get other people to support your ideas. Instead of just looking for agreement, ask the people, if you were me, how would you go about getting this idea across, or how would you do this? So by doing this, it is asking for their participation in the problem, and essentially it makes the problem their problem. Set up your brain trust. So by asking others their ideas, it compliments the other person and it flatters them that you would even ask them for their advice. Most people do not get asked, hey, I would like your opinion on this. And most people are not getting that recognition of them feeling worthy of being asked. People don't get asked stuff ever. If you go to the typical job place, they're like, just do as you're told. This is what you're supposed to do, and there is no ifs, ands, or buts. Nobody's asked about their opinion. So the magic secret of asking advice. So the secret to this technique is, it depends on why you're asking. Why are you asking the question? There are some people who are always sharing their problems and asking for advice, but not to fix the problem, but they're trying to seek sympathy or pity. And by doing this, you're actually making yourself a nuisance to people, and you're going to start getting people trying to avoid you. Ooh, excuse me. So, and then there's the person who asks for advice, not because they want your opinion, but they need that little pat on the back saying, hey, good job. Some people just want that. They're like, hey, I want your opinion on this, not because they want it, but they're like, I just want to be told I did a good job. But if you criticize it, then they're not happy. And then you don't have to ask your team advice all the time. By always asking for help, you're showing that you're an incompetent leader. And it's okay to ask your team advice on things every once in a while, but if you come to the team every time you have a little tiny issue, people end up starting asking, they're like, why am I even following this person? So don't ask for advice when you want assurance that you are right. Don't ask for advice or opinions when all you want is sympathy. And if you do, you're basically going to fail at solving problems, and you're also going to be a nuisance to other people. So that's where you have to be very careful. You have to ask yourself, why am I bringing this question to the team? What is the goal? Do I already know the answer? Or are you trying to teach somebody something? Because sometimes when you ask questions to different people on the team, it's more to challenge them to see if they know the answer and to see if you can direct them. And because sometimes people bring a problem to us and they're like, I'm having trouble recruiting these people. And a lot of times we'll ask and it's like, okay, well, here's what you're doing. This is the result you're getting. What do you think you should be doing differently? And sometimes, I'll call her in a bit, but sometimes they already know the answer. It's just they haven't done it yet. So then after they give it, then it's like, okay, well, why don't you try that? They're like, you know what, I think I would. Sometimes getting people to come up with their own answer is better than just telling them what to do, because they're more likely to do it. So with that, that's basically what this chapter was about, is just bring the questions that matter to your team to get their opinions and get them engaged, and to really teach them this is how to solve certain problems, because sometimes it's used as a training method to help people improve. But don't be that person that's constantly bringing little issues to people, because then you're just making yourself look ridiculous. So with that, that's basically what I got from this chapter. What would be a good example of good questions to bring to the team? Like, what separates?
I mean, when you're going to get people engaged, a lot of times, I mean, we're doing leads. So with leads, if you don't know the person up front, you basically have to build some kind of rapport, some kind of relationship. So it's really all about the questions you ask. I built the agent profile specifically for this, the questions to get to know somebody. And Brandy and I have talked about this, actually about this book on the show. Form, family, occupation, recreation. The message family is basically friendly questions to get to know who they are, who in their family they connect with. I always like to ask people, who did you grow up with? Who did you connect with the best? Who was your go-to person? Why was that the go-to person? Sometimes it's because they have influence. Sometimes it's because they're the ones who listen. Sometimes it's the only person they have. So your job is kind of to figure that out. Why are they going to that person? You go from, family and friendly and how they grew up to then occupation. What have you done? Where have you worked? What do you like? What do you like doing? What did you not like doing? That's always fun to ask. What did you not like doing? What kind of, upset you at your work situations? Most of the time you'll find it's people. Most of the time you'll find it's people, or the fact that they weren't appreciated while they were there, because there's a whole lot of that going on everywhere. So, or they're not recognized. So from going from there to, your next question in the line outside of form is recreation. What would you do if time and money weren't an issue? Like, where would you go? What would you do? And that one's a little bit harder to draw out, because people are like, I don't know, like, I've been working so hard, I haven't left my house. I've been working, especially now. I've been working so hard, I haven't done anything in years. Well, what did you like doing when you did have the money? Because normally the reason people aren't doing the things they like doing is because they don't have the money and they don't have the time. Now, the reason they don't have the time is because they don't have the money, usually. If you have all the time in the world, and then you just don't have enough money, because some people are on, fixed incomes of some kind, and they can't really go do anything. So you ask these questions. Then you get down, that's kind of surface level stuff. Most people feel totally comfortable talking about these first few things. Some of them, you can tell right off the bat. I can tell a lot about self-confidence based on how they answer these first three categories. Self-confidence of them talking about their family, who they got along with, who they didn't get along with. This will teach you more about people than anything. And the funny thing is I've done this with people who I barely know. And I get to know people better and faster than some people have their whole life. They're best friends sitting next to them, and I'm the one doing this interview. And I was like, well, who'd you grow up with? And they're like, oh, yeah, well, where'd you work? Oh, well, I did this. And they're like, I didn't even know you worked there. I never even knew you had that experience, and sometimes it's military, sometimes it's, some other job that took them overseas. Well, I didn't know you went overseas. And I get to know their best friend better than they do in a 45-minute conversation. So then we get down to, what are your strengths? What are you good at? What do you feel you're good at? And again, this has a lot to do with self-esteem. When I ask people what they're good at, they're like, well, I'm not sure. It's funny that people can't come up with what they're good at. I'm like, what are you good at? They're like, I'm not good at it. I've had people say, well, I'm not good at anything. What are your strengths? Well, I don't really have any strengths. I'm just a jack of all trades. I was like, well, that's not good. It should be, you should be good at something. And everybody is good at something. That's the main thing that I try to reinforce that. I'm like, dude, everybody's good at something. Some people are good at not showing up. You're here, so obviously that's not one of them. So, I joke with people, but the point is to draw out what they are good at. Then we get to this one. What are your weaknesses? And it's funny, people always have more weaknesses. They're like, oh, well, I'm not good at this, and I'm not good at that, and I'm not good at this. Again, I'm evaluating where self-esteem is at. Self-esteem, a lot of times, has to do with influence. If they have a low self-esteem, they will have low influence. If they have a higher self-esteem, they will have more influence. Meaning they're going to be able to build faster. They're going to be able to build more efficiently. They're going to be able to build, without you, which is the key. And here's the thing. Most people have low self-esteem, and most people have low influence. Most people. So how do you fix this? You're going to fix this by personal development. You're going to fix this over time. You're going to fix this around being around positive people, reading positive books, and not just positive books, you know, the choo-choo that, you know, the thought you could, that's a great story, but it's not really going to help you internally. You have to fix some of the stuff that's internal. Sometimes coaching and counseling come in there. I mean, I've met people where I was like, well, what do you think's holding you back? And they give me a list so long. I'm like, you do not need personal development. You need real counseling. I mean, there's some stuff you've gone through that is beyond what I know how to fix, beyond what, well, I don't know how to fix anything, beyond what the books that I know of are going to help you with. Like, you really need to sort some of this out with a professional, because it's, you know, there's trauma in people's lives and people have gone through all kinds of stuff. And it's funny how this line of questioning will draw some of that out. And that's why some people just avoid it. They're like, uh-oh, they're going to ask me questions. And now I'm going to have to talk and actually be a real person and figure this stuff out. And I'm perfectly happy getting attention for all the stuff and drama in my life. So we go from strengths to weaknesses to motivation. What motivates you? Is it the money? Is it the mission? Is it the challenge? Is it the environment? Is it the people? What motivates you? Then we go to what is the most important thing, or not what is most important, where do you want to be in 2 to 5 years? So it goes from motivation to where do you want to be in 2 to 5 years? And again, I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I've done it so many times. That's why I remember it, or at least it kind of seems like I remember it after I forget which order it goes in. So where do you want to be in 2 to 5 years? Where do you want to be financially? Where do you want to be physically? Where do you want to be in your relationship? Where do you want to be with your health? Where do you want to be? Like, you can draw a lot more of this out, but you're kind of getting like what direction they're headed. Sometimes they're headed in the wrong direction, backwards. We try to get them headed in the right direction. And then the last question is, what motivates you? What is the most important thing in your life? What is the most important thing in your life? So it's strengths, weaknesses, motivation, where do you want to be in 2 to 5 years, and what is the most important thing in your life right now? That will give you a good indication of who this person is, what kind of influence they have, what is their self-esteem. Honestly, if HR directors learned to ask these questions, and here's the thing, a lot of times they can't ask these questions. Like, I just went through a real estate class and got this list of stuff that you can't ask. You can't ask in an interview. You can't ask if you're hiring them. Which is, you know, absolutely ridiculous, because that's how you get to know people, and that's how you're going to make a judgment call on who you bring on board. Which is probably also why everything I do is contract based. Because the way the rules are written, it's insanity. It doesn't make any sense. You're going to bring on the wrong people. And the thing that costs businesses usually the most money is bringing on the wrong people. Worse, training the wrong people. And then the wrong people are there for amount of time. The only thing worse than, and I think Tony Robbins said this, the only thing worse than bringing on the wrong person is not getting rid of them. So why would you want to get rid of somebody on your team? You don't get rid of people on your team. You don't. What you do is you spend the most time with the people who get it, and the most people, and the time, it's the 80-20 rule that John Maxwell talks about. John's like, look, we've got a big organization. I can't spend time with everybody. 80% of the people I can't spend time with. A lot of time. You know, I can walk through, I can say hi, I can take a picture, but I can't spend 25 minutes talking about their problem of whatever they're going through. It just doesn't make sense. Why? Because at the same time they have that problem, they're not producing anything. They're not doing anything about it. They're not achieving. They're not moving ahead. Their entire focus is this challenge, whatever it is. He goes, other people, 80% of their life is focused on doing the right thing and moving forward and building and growing and whatever. And when they have a challenge, I'm willing to work on it because they're doing all the other right things. It's kind of a neat balance. Like, if you've never been in that position, if you've never recruited before, that's why I struggled so hard, for so long to figure some of this out, because I really didn't have anybody sitting down and teach me all this. I had to kind of get a piece of it here and a piece of there. I had really, really, really good people training me in the very beginning. Really good people training me in the beginning. And what I mean the beginning is when I was 17, 18, 19, 20, up until the time I was 21. I had some of the best people in the industry training me. Now, I'm trying to remember and take from that training from 20, plus years ago to do what we're doing now. but I found most of the material that, you know, they produced even back then, because they were producing audios back then, they were producing books back then, and I've bought, found, you know, captured, you know, borrowed, you know, so in some cases people have stuff that I've found from years and years and years ago, and that specifically is how I've been able to, you know, get this information and grow the business from here. So with that, what else?
I think that's it. So tomorrow we're going to be going over chapter 12, and I think there's only one more chapter after that.
Yep.
I think there's 13 chapters in this book, so we are almost done. So with that, that is it. We will see you guys tomorrow, and have a good day.
Awesome.